So here's the thing. We can explain. It was the middle of a pandemic.
Mercury was in retrograde.
And I had a really bad stromboli that week. Mistakes were made. 1 year ago, we decided to sell most of our stuff, give up our lease in Los Angeles, and live a more flexible lifestyle.
We're selling that. We're selling that.
Donating. Not in a million years.
We weren't planning to be nomads in the traditional sense, but we did want to split our time between Sydney and Philadelphia to be closer to our families. And we knew that renting a long-term apartment probably wasn't realistic.
You put pressure on yourself to kind of feel like you're moving forward in life, and I have to kind of work against that kind of pressure to remind myself that I have a choice, and actually there's real freedom to be found perhaps in kind of living lighter and more nomadic.
So we decided to just take the leap and see where it takes us, and that took us here. So I think when we initially set out to do this, we knew that there were going to be a lot of unknowns. This, in a lot of ways, was an experiment. We weren't sure how it was going to play out. But I think we learned a lot so far.
Yeah.
So in this video, we want to talk about some of the challenges, some of the unexpected things that we got into, some of the mistakes that we made, and also all the good things that we got out of this process and what life is going to look like going forward. So let's get into it.
Experiments are expensive. Experiments are expensive. They're expensive.
They're really expensive.
Yeah. I think we knew that this was not going to be the most cost-effective approach to living, to try to, go to Sydney for a while and then go to Philly for a while and not have kind of survive off Airbnbs. Airbnbs are great for vacations. I think they're trying to be seen as long stay facilitators, but they're expensive. We were still able to get a discount for, multi-month stays. But it's certainly a lot pricier than renting. Obviously, the benefit of that is we didn't have to buy furniture when we were in Sydney. We didn't have to buy plates and cups and bowls and forks and knives and, a couch and a bed and a mattress. We didn't have to buy those things, so that's great.
I think in the short term, it made the most sense because we were just getting started out and we certainly didn't want to move to Sydney and then buy all the stuff and move into an apartment when we knew we were going to be leaving. Well, we actually thought initially we were going to leave in 3 months, but we ended up staying for 9 months. And so that actually worked out because we were just all right, it's the most convenient. It's the easiest to get started. It's also the cheapest in the short term because we're not spending thousands of dollars on all this new furniture. But then the costs add up because rent is essentially double when you're living out of an Airbnb.
Yeah, 9 months is a long time to stay in an Airbnb, which leads us to our next
point.
Our next mistake. Our next challenge.
We really fucked that up.
Experiments are uncomfortable. What? Experiments are uncomfortable.
Experiments are really uncomfortable.
As was that. That was uncomfortable.
Yeah. We were living a quasi-nomad life. I think nomads would actually look at us and laugh and be like, that's not nomad. because we had an Airbnb for 9 months and we weren't living in hostels and living in tents.
Bougie
and
nomads?
We're bougie nomads. And maybe seasonal nomads. And so it was uncomfortable for us. And we certainly could never do the back. Nat did the backpacking through Europe when she was younger, but we couldn't do that at our age now because we just wouldn't be happy or comfortable doing it. And then just living in an apartment that just wasn't big enough, didn't meet our needs, didn't have enough space. You guys know the amount of camera gear that I have. And so that's just everywhere in next to the living room, in the kitchen, lights are set up all the time.
On the daily, I felt like I was tripping on things, walking into things, almost getting my eye poked out by rods.
I will say never did get her eye poked out, so that's a win.
Almost did. All it's going to take is one time for me to be blind.
And then Nat's going to pop up in a video with an eye patch.
I almost wish I did. I almost wish I did.
Yeah. Really? Yeah. Just out of spite?
Just next time I'm just going to be like,
I told you so.
Yeah.
I saw you.
I'm going to be like, see? Or actually, I don't see.
I'm going to be like, I saw you thrust your eye towards it.
Prove it.
It's really important to curate a home and think really intentionally about how you lay out your home, the things that you bring into it.
Yes.
And in this case, we were just so limited. I think if
Yeah.
we were looking to rent an apartment, we never would have gone with that one because it was too small for our needs.
Like, you know, if you're at home watching this right now, if you look around, you've put things exactly where they are. And it might be clean and tidy, or it might be a complete mess. But that's a space that you've curated to feel comfortable within. And, you know, because it's an Airbnb, it's not customized to you. It's actually meant to be universal, which really means it doesn't really suit anyone. So I think that, you know, it's not made for long-term comfort.
Hey Nat, sorry to interrupt, but do you mind if I quickly talk about my YouTube course? Because enrollment is only open for one more week, and I really want to give people the deets.
Oh no, me. It's not like we're having a conversation.
Great. So imagine if Nat wants to start her own YouTube channel,
I don't.
but imagine if she did. You might think that having the best camera, t-shirt, glasses, and beanie is going to help her make great videos, but no.
I don't know. This feels right.
What Nat really needs is a roadmap. And that's why I created Master YouTube. It's the steps, tools, and skills you need to start your channel, create original videos that rise above the noise, and attract your first 1,000 true fans and beyond, all in one place. For the first time ever, I'm giving you an inside look at how I operate my channel, my process when I create a video, and everything I wish I'd known as a brand new creator. If you've ever watched a YouTube video and said to yourself, I want to do that, but I don't know how, then click the link in the description to learn more about how to master YouTube. Enrollment is only going to be open for another week after I upload this video. So what do you think? Are you going to enroll in Master YouTube? Everybody's watching. This is a big moment.
No.
The
world wasn't built for nomads. So
The world wasn't built
for nomads. The most loaded question that we can be asked is, what's your address?
What's your zip code?
What's your zip code?
We have
What's your country?
for our banks, we've changed the zip code like 4 or 5 times in the past year.
Yes.
And so we just like have, honestly, when I go to pay for something now and I have to put the zip code in, I always get it wrong twice.
Yeah. My card gets rejected.
Like the world definitely wasn't set up for people that are living a nomadic lifestyle.
So in Australia, they have universal healthcare, and getting onto universal healthcare, or me getting back onto it, because I've been off it for a while since I've been living in the US, was impossible because I couldn't provide any of the evidence, like what's your address in Australia, or like show a rental agreement or property that you own,
Electric, utilities,
a employment contract. I'm self-employed, so like all these standard documents that you'd have to share to prove anything for admin, we don't really have.
And we have had to get more thoughtful about, like, when we do get those like electric bills and utilities and stuff, you have to hold on to a lot of that stuff, because then you need to be able to prove to insurers that you have a qualified life event. Like, it gets really tricky.
And then you don't have that when you're living in an Airbnb.
We have a massive checklist for like every time we leave Sydney, every time that we leave Philadelphia. What are the things that we need to do and check off? And like the switching over our cell phone provider and that stuff. Like it's really annoying, and it takes weeks and weeks until you actually are feeling somewhat comfortable.
Very difficult.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
Not very fun.
No. We shouldn't have sold all of our stuff. Do you really believe that?
I don't believe that, Natalie. Thanks for asking. I think that we made the right decision with selling most of our stuff. It definitely made life easier. We did hold on to a lot of really important essentials and some of our favorite things in a storage locker. I think if we could have gone back, there would definitely be some pieces of furniture, like our mattress that we had and a few other things that we would have held on to, because I think it just took so much time as we're now coming back and kind of getting more settled down, realizing that, it would have been great to have those things.
So we sold everything through like Facebook Marketplace. We got decent money from it, and it's great because it's kind of offset the price that we would have had to pay to acquire this bed we're sitting on and, this bedside table and the dresser that's behind the camera.
When we feel like regret over some of the decisions that we made in terms of selling or getting rid of most of our stuff, I think it comes down to, one, a little bit of guilt for the things that probably did end up in a landfill, or we know we did because we had to throw it out because it just wouldn't go to a donation center. the things that we donate and think, oh, did anybody actually end up getting use or value from it? I think these are the things
There
that
wasn't a lot.
There wasn't
There
a
really
lot.
wasn't a
but
lot.
But I still think that like these are the things that everybody deals with when they're getting rid of stuff. It's like
I
you're gonna
agree,
feel a
yeah.
little bit of guilt, and I think actually feeling a little bit of that is okay because it makes you be more thoughtful about the next purchase that
For
you make
sure.
because you don't want to buy something or take something off somebody's hands if you're gonna eventually just throw it out. So we talked about the challenges, we talked about the things that were difficult and the mistakes that we made, but there were also a lot of really good things that happened from this whole process. So let's get into those. Experiments bring you closer. Are you not gonna do
No, I was just going to see how long you would go without me doing it.
Okay. Experiments.
Why are you so shy?
Experiments bring you closer to family. The entire reason that we did this was always to be closer with family. And so when we were in Sydney, for me, that was my first time really getting a chance to
Yeah.
experience Sydney in a way that felt like I was living there because we were. To spend more time with Nat's family and friends, who are now my family and friends, was really, really special. Aww. And then it was difficult to come back to the East Coast of the US. It was also easy. It's one of those things that it's always going to be bittersweet whenever we leave a place. It's not a perfect situation by any stretch, but this is the best situation that we could possibly find.
It feels so good. It feels so good. And like I love that it allows us room for spontaneity as well. So like even little things like our sister-in-law coming in with our nephew and niece on Friday into Philly, and she's like, hey, I'm gonna be in town, should we grab lunch? We're like, yeah, like it's just like we haven't done things like that. Like these are just little things that I think we all probably take for granted when you have your family and friends like readily around you. But when you don't, it's like you know, just the little pop-ins and like a, hey, what are you doing Friday night? Or like just popping in, like it just feels so good.
We're getting more and more comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We're trying to find a way in this work where this will work for us.
This experiment we're learning is iterative. So like, you know, as we learn things, we change the way we design it.
We got to Philly and we started renting out basically an Airbnb, similar type situation in Sydney. And we were just like, oh, this is like, it was all these things that we've already talked about in this video. Just we were not comfortable. And so we were like, all right, how can we make this work for us? And then we like started looking around at apartments and we're like, apartments are literally going to be half the cost of this short-term rental that we were staying in. And so we decided that, you know what, let's just get an apartment. We did not set out to, you know, settle down in any way or have an apartment here in Philadelphia. But as we started to look into it, as we started to do the numbers and look into our finances and think about the kind of life that we wanted to build, we're like, all right, screw it. Let's just get an apartment. Let's get comfortable. You know, obviously we had to buy a lot of new furniture, which was a bit of a pain in the butt. Our plan right now is to maybe sublet this when we leave, like rent it out if we can to somebody else. And so then that way we can have an apartment here. We're not quite sure what we're going to do when we get to Sydney. We have to figure out a way that we can make Sydney just as comfortable as here.
You found it a lot easier to embrace the fact that we were going to be getting a lease here in Philly than I did, because I knew we weren't going to be here all the time. And so there's something so concrete and certain and final about signing a lease or like buying a property. It's like you expect to be there all the time. We signed this lease knowing that we weren't going to be here all the time, and I found that really extravagant, and I found that really like it was
a bit of pressure, a lot of pressure,
so much pressure, and to be honest, I still kind of struggle with it, like. But I realize that is, I think it's like society telling us what we're meant to do, because like when I think about it rationally and I think about it like financially, I'm like, well, like if we are open to subletting it, where we were staying, which was the Sunday Airbnb, was crazy expensive. We know that going between Sydney and Philly is like, that feels so good that like we will invest in that kind of lifestyle design.
I'm so happy and content, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, I'm so glad we did what we did.
Yeah, it's just like time. I think we've all learned with the last 2 years that we've all had, irregardless of where you are in the world, like time with loved ones is worth investing in. And I think that's the decision we've chosen and the path we've chosen. And yes, it's not the cheapest way to live and it's not the easiest way to live. Like there's a lot of complications, but for us, it is so worth it. Okay, so that's the show, folks. So hit subscribe down below. See some notes there. Something about Squarespace, maybe.
No, not in this video.
We don't like Squarespace anymore.
No,
we like them. We like
Squarespace.
them. Squarespace, we love you.
Stick with us.
But yeah, hit that like button. If you hit dislike, you can get the out of here. We'll see you next week. Yo!
Wow, what a YouTuber. A master YouTuber.
A master
some would say.
YouTuber.